Bonsoir tout le monde.
Bonsoir, bonsoir à tous et toutes. Bienvenue à notre réunion annuelle des membres de l'Alliance française de Minneapolis-Saint-Paul. Thank you for your attendance and your participation in our annual board election and this year in the adoption of revised bylaws. My name is Bryn Vaaler, and it has been my privilege to serve as chairman of the board of the Alliance since 2017. This year's annual meeting is the first in our long history that is not bringing us together in person under the same roof. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're coming together via internet technology instead. The pandemic is causing businesses and organizations around the globe to experience many difficult firsts and face many new challenges to continue carrying out their missions while protecting the health of all involved. In this troubling time, I am happy to report that your Alliance has risen to the occasion, met the educational, operational, financial, and human challenges posed by the pandemic head-on, and given every indication that we can continue to thrive, serve our members, and advance our important cultural goals in the new normal that we will face. So before discussing our response to the pandemic in the second half of fiscal 2020, I'd like to provide a little context by stepping back just one fiscal year. Fiscal 2019 was a year of great strides forward in making our dream of a new home for the Alliance a reality. We acquired our beautiful new building, the Jolie Family Center for International Understanding in the West Loop neighborhood of Minneapolis. We completed much of the planned renovation of the new building. We moved all of our classes and events to the new facility with its sunlit atrium, its charming urban feel, and its ample parking. And we continued to make great progress on completion of our $5.1 million capital campaign to defray the costs of purchasing and renovating the Jolie Center, with about $1 million left to raise, assuming we sell our old building for its previous appraised value. The first half of fiscal 2020 was a continuation of this progress. All classes and events benefited from our great new space. The Alliance Multimedia Library was moved to the Jolie Center. Our fantastic new French book and gift store, La Boutique, opened, and sales exceeded projections almost immediately. Our last major inherited tenant in the Jolie Center left at the end of its lease on December 31st. That gave us access for the first time to the space for our new Grande Salle Event Center, our permanent reception area, a cafe, a teaching kitchen, and administrative offices. But just as we prepared to begin construction on this space in March 2020, the pandemic struck. But our incredible Alliance faculty and staff responded to the pandemic and the stay-at-home restrictions without missing a beat. On the education front, our teachers were quickly trained on use of Zoom and Apple Learn, and all course offerings transitioned to online format, beginning with the last 2 weeks of winter session. Spring session, completely online, and member feedback on the online courses has been excellent. Class registration revenues in spring 2020 were only 15% less than registration revenues 1 year before, spring 2019, which is an extraordinary tribute to our faculty and staff and to the loyalty and determination of our members to learn and to enjoy each other's company electronically when meeting in person is not an option. At this time, the Alliance plans to have all summer classes in online format as well. But as stay-at-home restrictions are relaxed in the future, we will be well positioned to adapt course offerings to whatever the new normal is that we may find, whether through a continuation of online learning, in-person classes, or some hybrid format. With respect to events, where possible, they were transitioned from in-person to online. While some events had to be delayed or canceled, wonderful new events were devised. The most notable adaptation to date was our annual gala, which was transformed into a 13-day online silent auction, culminating in a YouTube auction live streamed from the Jolie Center on May 13th. Members tuned in to the live streamed event while enjoying a delicious take-home dîner en Provence provided by Valerie's French Kitchen and Au Crêpe. Member participation in the online gala was truly extraordinary. Net proceeds from this year's auction totaled nearly $40,000, which is less than we netted last year at the 2019 gala, which was an all-time record, but equal to the proceeds from a number of other in-person galas in recent years. We're planning modified versions of other events for the rest of calendar 2020, including Bastille Day at the Joly Center. Mark your calendar. It's actually going to be on July 14th this year. More to come on that in a minute. Despite the pandemic and other challenges, our financial performance in fiscal 2020 remained solid, and so did most of our fundraising. As noted, class registration revenues since the onset of the pandemic have held up remarkably compared to last year. We hope that summer and fall registration revenues will continue this trend. This spring, we created a La Boutique website from which orders may be made for pickup. In addition to funds raised through our online gala, our fiscal 2020 annual fund donations reached in excess of $47,000 to date. The year's not over. In addition, in April, with the help of our great friends at Bank Cherokee, we very quickly obtained a loan under the federal Paycheck Protection Program equal to 2.5 times monthly payroll. And this helped cover some shortfalls in the spring, and we fully expect to be eligible for full forgiveness of this PPP loan because we've used it entirely for permitted payroll and other expenses. The pandemic has, however, caused a delay in renovation of the Joly Center and in completion of our capital campaign. We've essentially ceased all significant remaining renovation work at the Joly Center until we have a better handle on the new normal. Our ability to complete all planned renovations depends on two things. Number one, the sale of our old building at 113 North 1st Street, proceeds from which will go to pay down the Joly Center acquisition bridge loan we took out from Bank Cherokee. And two, obtaining the final $1 million in additional funding to complete our $5.1 million capital campaign. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The pandemic and its impact on global economy continue to reshape the environment in which we will try to accomplish these goals over the next fiscal year. Delay is disappointing for all of us, including those generous donors who've contributed toward particular improvements yet to be made at the Joly Center, some of which would bear their names. But I have great faith in the creativity and grit of the Alliance staff and leadership and the loyalty and devotion of our members and friends. Ensemble, on peut tout faire. My remarks today are reproduced in the Alliance's 2020 annual report, along with more detailed reports from each of our various functional areas, and I hope you will read them all. The annual report will be available immediately after this meeting on the Alliance website, and the work of our leaders, staff, faculty, and volunteers will truly inspire you. I cannot possibly thank everyone who contributed to the progress we have made over the last year and to our success in advancing our mission in the age of COVID-19, but I want to mention a few. First, we're deeply grateful to Teddy and Heidi Gazelle and Julie Novak of Bank Cherokee for their trust and for their continued banking partnership over the last year. We mourn with them the loss of our dear Alliance friend, Jim Gazelle. Many thanks to the lawyers of Dorsey & Whitney LLP and Stinson LLP for their legal assistance on matters big and small over the last year, all on a pro bono basis. We don't pay a penny. What a wonderful contribution. And I want to recognize our board members. Some of them are standing for re-election and some are rotating off the board this year. Let me just name them: Michelle Champlin-Bergner, Tanya Gajewska, Susan Grovender, Sameen Hickman, Chris Holman, Jeremy Eggers, Allison Lindberg, Carolee Lindsay, Jeff Lundgren, Lamia Muhin, Michael Musa, Pam Papastanek, Jacqueline Regis, Martine Sohe, Scott Stanglin, Chichi Steiner, Jonathan Vesey, and Karen Zentner Bacig. I am so deeply grateful for the support, the hard work, and the wise counsel that all of these directors have contributed over the last year. Special thanks to Karen, who has served as our vice chair, Tanya, our corporate secretary, Carolee, our chief financial officer, and Jonathan, our legal counsel. Also, special thanks to Scott Stanglin and Jeff Lundgren for their work as directors and officers of our subsidiary entity, AFMSP Real Estate Holding LLC, which is the direct owner of the Jolie Center. I want to give a warm welcome to our new board candidates, Philip Barnes, L. Pierce McCarty III, and Caroline Sell. And finally, I want to extend an extremely grateful farewell to the board members who are rotating off the board tonight. And I think we have some incriminating photos of them to share with you. First, Karen Zentner Bacig, Susan Grovender, Carolee Lindsay, who is rotating off the board but will remain as our chief financial officer for the time being. Thank you, Carolee. And finally, Martine Soré. Great photos. Of course, the excellence of our Alliance chapter begins with you, our members. You number nearly 1,100. Without your devotion to the Alliance's mission, your volunteer work, and your generous financial support, the Alliance, frankly, could not exist. So thanks to all of you. On behalf of our board, I would like once again to express our deepest gratitude to our executive director, Christina Selander Bouzouina. She continues to lead the Alliance with tremendous energy, creativity, and talent, supported by an incredibly gifted administrative staff. Christina and her staff have once again outdone themselves this year, both in the excellence with which they've overseen and executed operations under normal conditions, but especially in how they've risen to meet the challenges of the pandemic. Our Alliance, in case I haven't told you in the last 15 minutes, is by any measure one of the most successful chapters in the United States. According to the Fondation Alliance Française in Paris, we are the 5th largest chapter of over 100 chapters in the United States in number of registered students. Only New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Boston are bigger. Wow. Finally, the Alliance would not be the Alliance without a faculty of extraordinary teachers. Thank you to our teaching staff for creating a wonderful learning environment and for sharing your intelligence, your knowledge, and your love for the language, the literature, and the culture of France and of Francophone people around the world. Mille merci for your flexibility in adapting to the new online learning environment, and a special thanks to Lewis-Sadrant for his leadership in that adaptation. The enrichment that you bring to our lives and to our souls has never been more important than in this time of physical isolation in the face of a deadly pandemic. I can't close without noting the heartache that has gripped our beloved Twin Cities and our nation following the horrific killing of George Floyd. We at the Alliance condemn racism and every form of discrimination. We support peaceful protest as a vanguard to real and much needed change in our system of justice and in our society. The Alliance is committed to helping eliminate racism, discrimination, and violence, and to healing our community by continuing to provide a safe space for all to gather, learn, share, and enrich their lives. I look forward to announcing the results of this year's election in just a few minutes. I'll be back to do that. In the meantime, let me say that on a personal level, it is an incredible joy and privilege to be part of this wonderful organization and all that it accomplishes, even in the toughest of times. I look forward to seeing all of you regularly in class and at Alliance events, whether in person or online, throughout the coming year. Vive l'Alliance! Et maintenant, je vais donner la parole à notre chère directrice, Christina.
Merci beaucoup, Bryn. Bonsoir tout le monde. As Bryn said, our organization is dedicated to promoting diverse voices from our community. And I hope you'll join us tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. We have an event with 3 of our Francophonie community members talking about their experience as people of color living in Minnesota and sharing their stories as parents of teenagers, of children of color, and how we can all be friends and allies and continue in this fight. I also want to follow Bryn's remarks in thanking our amazing team. I'm lucky enough to stand here and share with you the results of what we've done this year, but I couldn't do it without an amazing team of administration and staff and teaching staff. So I'm tremendously fortunate to have such a wonderful group of people working with me every day. All right, so we started this year with quite a few goals. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So we set forth 7 goals for this year, not knowing what would happen as the year progressed. And just one note, as we walk through these goals and we look at our progress to date, our fiscal year doesn't end until June 30th. So these financial results are as of May 31st. So things do change in that last month. Donations continue to come in, registration, of course, in our classes as well. And certainly in our cultural events. So these aren't final numbers, keep that in mind. This is just where we're standing with 11 of the 12 months of our current fiscal year. So our first goal was to grow earned revenue by 5% over last year's projected income. And unfortunately, it decreased by 1.3%. Our second goal was to increase language instruction revenue. So the revenue that comes from all of our classes, our tutoring, our programs in companies and in schools. We hope to grow that by 5%. It did grow, but by 1%. We also hope to increase development revenue by 4%. And as you'll see in a moment, development revenue actually decreased by 30%, which is due to how our gala was structured when we moved it online. The revenue that the Alliance brings in from selling the meals, for example, as well as some decreases in sponsorship account for that decrease. So this year with an online event, we didn't have a $175 ticket per attendee. And so that is why our gala, as Bryn mentioned, was certainly profitable, and we were over the moon to see $40,000 in net revenue raised from that event. Fourth, our goal was to increase cultural program revenue by 6%. And cultural programs revenue was one of the deepest decreases this year, shrinking 55%, in the second half of the year due to online events, but also as we ramp up to Bastille Day 2020 with the unknown of how we would organize our annual Fête Nationale next month. So sponsorship and the format that we've usually followed with Meritage and all of our partners in St. Paul had to change. All right, next slide, please. Our fifth goal, was to increase membership to 1,250. As of yesterday, we had 1,073 members, which is an increase, but only 3%. So we'll keep that 1,250 as the goal moving forward. As Bryn mentioned in his remarks, our goals included expanding the French Corner bookstore into a larger gift shop and to increase revenue to $3,000 net of expenses. The boutique launched in November, and net revenue is $2,000 so far this year as of May 31st. And that includes covering $5,000 in startup expenses, whether those were fixtures, consulting, or other equipment that we needed to purchase. And finally, it was my pleasure to plan a trip to Morocco in January 2020. It was our most successful trip thus far. We had 16 participants on our adventure, and we raised over $12,000 for Alliance Française. So our next slide will show us last year versus this year. And again, let me just remind you, this is as of mid-June. So these are not final results. These are not audited numbers. These are just showing trends. You can see language instruction is up slightly over last year, as I said, 1%. Development revenue has decreased substantially, but the expenses, as you'll see in a later slide, also decreased proportionally because we didn't pay for catering and for the meal. The trip increased, membership was relatively flat, La Boutique soared, as it would when it was launched, and then events shrunk, unfortunately, but that's one thing we have to look forward to when we can all reconvene. Our next slide shows the revenue sources. So what is the revenue our organization thrives upon? Language instruction continues to be our bread and butter, so to speak, with 56% of revenue. It's followed by development, so our fundraising, whether that's annual fund, our fall fashion brunch, our gala, grants represent 17%, followed by the trip, which is now 9%, or at least was this year. Then we have membership at 6%, and La Boutique and our cultural events each representing 3% of our revenue. So this is a total decrease of 1.3% from 2019. If we look a little closer at language revenue, the majority of our classes are group sessions, so fall, winter, spring, and summer. And here you can see 3 years to give you a better trend. So in the beige column, you have 2018. In the lighter blue, you have 2019. And then in the darker blue, the columns on the right, you have this current year, 2020. So you can see 2018 in the fall, we were just under $100,000 in revenue, and it dipped notably in 2019, which is right when we were moving to our new building and we were reassessing our old space and the parking situation that we faced. And now 2020, we've seen an increase. So we've seen that the downward trend has been reversed. That was further confirmed in winter. If you look at those numbers, winter 2019 was very low and really made it obvious that our students were struggling with a place to park, and access to our building and our programming wasn't what it should have been. But in 2020, again, it resumed. When we get to spring, of course, that's when the pandemic hit. Actually, it was at the end of winter, but to impact our spring session. So there was a decrease, but we feel confident that the number of students who followed, especially new adult learners who joined us in the spring, will continue. And as we're all adjusting to online platforms, this will only continue to grow. And finally, when we look at our summer trend, summer classes start next week. So these numbers are very preliminary. Typically 10% of our revenue comes in, or 10% of our registration, the first week of classes. So we anticipate that 2020 blue bar on the far right to increase. All right, next slide. In terms of expenses, our expenses increased this year by 7% over last year. You'll notice right at the top, one of our lowest expenses was fundraising, which is not typical. Fundraising expenses decreased by 68% due to the online gala format. So there was no catering or dinner. At the bottom of the chart, you'll see that payroll increased by 12% over last year. And that was due to the expansion of 2 part-time positions into full-time positions with benefits. Payroll continues to represent the largest expense for our organization, which is normal for a service-based organization or industry. Payroll at the Alliance Française represents 69% of our expenses in fiscal year 2020. Let's talk about membership. As of yesterday, we had 1,073 members. 246 materials had been borrowed from the library last year, noting that the library was closed for several months while we moved from one location to the next. About 1 out of every 5 members has a Culture Tech account to access the online library. And 2 out of 3 members take classes. So 2/3 of our members became members or joined our organization so that they or their children could take classes with us. Just some interesting information about our members. Talk about cultural events. This year we hosted a whopping 188 events with 5,083 attendees. So clearly that's too many events to give you a full recap. So I'll just pick 4 highlights, I think, from this year. Bastille Day 2019 was a thriving success in downtown St. Paul, a beautiful day and a beautiful partnership with the City of St. Paul and Meritage. In our new building, after our inauguration in September, we had our largest Fête d'hiver holiday party in Alliance Française history. More than 160 guests came to celebrate the holiday season in our new home. And in March, just before the pandemic and the shutdown, we hosted a film festival for schools, and we had 456 children come on field trips with 4 local schools at Festinema at St. Anthony Main Theatre. And then later, well, also in March, same time, our Mois de la Francophonie celebrated Cameroon with a series of events that started in person, but then quickly pivoted to the online Zoom platform that we've all come to know so well. And the events in that series were attended by 84 people. We talk about development and fundraising. The annual fund, as Bryn mentioned, has raised $47,000 to date, which is a 33% increase over last year, which is amazing. In what's happening in the community, in the economy, we are so grateful to our members, to our donors for your support and your faith in our organization. Our second annual fall fashion brunch was twice the success it was the previous year, raising $1,500, and so we'll continue to build on that. We're still waiting and thinking about what next fall's format will look like, but we hope that by then we'll be able to gather in some form. And then our gala. Preliminary numbers are showing net revenue of $39,522 raised from that event and the 15-day online auction that preceded. We go ahead to the next slide, La Boutique. So I want to say a huge thanks to our office manager, Brenna Mosser, for all of her help with La Boutique. La Boutique is staffed by volunteers, and our volunteers are wonderful, and we couldn't do it without them. La Boutique is dark when we don't have volunteers here to help welcome potential clients and customers. I also want to thank Tammy Roth, who continues to volunteer, but was a terrific help in opening, and she offered her services as a consultant last August to teach Brenna and I about opening and running a gift shop. So aside from our volunteers, you know, I can't imagine La Boutique without Brenna's help. So it's just been amazing. As Bryn said, it opened in September 2019. Our total sales to date, or as of June 10th, were $19,641, considering it was closed for 3 months of that period. So essentially $19,000 in 6 months of operations. Total expenses were $17,800. And those expenses do include $5,200 in the startup expenses. So consulting fees, fixtures, supplies, that sort of equipment, the iPad, the square, all of that stuff. La Boutique without startup expenses, with just the merchandise sold, would have had net revenue of $7,000 in its first year of operation with 3 months of closure. So I think that is really something to celebrate, and I hope that it will only continue to increase. In closing, I just want to acknowledge and remember we lost a lot of members in our community this year, but 3 really pioneers in our Alliance Française. Of course, Hélène Peters, she was the founding chairwoman of the board of the Alliance when we were incorporated in 1975, professor at Macalester, and you know, she reigned over the library committee for years, I think until maybe 2012 or 2014, and very well esteemed and respected, and just a tremendous loss to our community. Jim Gazelle, as Bryn said, Teddy and Jim Gazelle have just been amazing partners of Alliance Française going back to the 70s as well, just like Hélène. And their support in this new building and our capital campaign is part of what made it happen, and just such a wonderful person. Marie-Rose Adams was the French grandmother that adopted, I think, all of us, and she invented our French for Travelers class that's continued to be taught today. her family is longtime members and supporters as well. Her son did lots of handiwork around the building, much to his dismay, I think. But just a French grandmother who was the chair of the facilities committee and a teacher and a board member and just played such a pivotal role in our chapter. So we'll remember them and all that they did for our organization. And we're lucky to have known them. And with that, I think I will turn the microphone over to Karen Zentner Bacig. And I want to thank Karen for being such a wonderful vice chairwoman over the past few years. So Karen.
Thank you, Christina. Bonsoir, everyone. I am happy to be here with you. The annual meeting provides us with at least one opportunity, and there certainly are others, but it's an opportunity to hear from the membership questions that you might have. This year in our online format with this meeting, we opened up an opportunity for people to submit questions ahead of time. And we had a couple that were really great. And so I wanted to just take a very brief moment to address those. One question had to do with information that might be available at the Alliance Française Minneapolis-St. Paul about travel and living abroad in France. We are fortunate, of course, to have Christina as our executive director. And as many of you know, but if you don't, another bit of good news, she is also honorary consul of France in Minnesota. And in that role is a fantastic resource in this area. And so I would invite any of you that have interest in exploring your questions around the potential for living and certainly for travel in France to reach out to Christina. Information certainly around visas or carte de séjour are among the many things she could help with. And I will guarantee you, if there's something she doesn't know, and I have yet to find it, quite frankly, she has a wonderful resource network. And so she can reach out, refer you to other resources. So don't hesitate to reach out to the organization if you have questions like those. In addition, as many of you are aware, and I hope if not all of you have been here, that when we can be back circulating a bit more in public, that you'll come visit us. We are in a wonderful building right now. The Jolie Center provides incredible accessibility in terms of now having an elevator, parking right next to the building, an accessible ramp into the building, restrooms on every floor. But in addition, another inquiry that came to us was around accommodations for students that have visual impairments. And so our education director, Alix Lewis-Sadrant, who you will meet in just a minute, will work with any student to explore options for making our classes more accessible relative to visual impairments, hearing impairments. So please don't hesitate, again, to reach out to Alix if you would like to discuss a need for accommodation that would make any of our French courses, be they language or literature or any of our events, more accessible. With that, I would ask Allison whether or not we have any other questions.
I have not seen any come through in the chat. If anyone has a question, you're welcome to type it in the chat. You'll find it on the bottom dashboard bar, the black bar, and it will either say chat or you'll see 3 dots that say more. If you click on that, you'll see a chat option. So feel free to enter any questions there if you have them.
And of course, never hesitate to ask a question. Oh, this is but one opportunity. Whoa, this is great. From my fellow dear board member, Carolee Lindsay, what will I miss most about being on the board? Boy, how much time have you got? Honestly, this has been an incredible 6 years. I will miss the people, the wonderful staff and the teachers and our wonderful director, and yeah, I'm gonna miss it. It's gonna be a hole for me, but I'm here all the time or on Zoom, as the case may be now, taking classes. So I won't go far. So, oh yes, I will. I did already say I'd continue to serve on the gala committee, so they can't get rid of me. Any other questions? The boutique looks marvelous. Any plans to expand selection or inventory in the boutique? Oh, so we're always looking for new ideas. If you have new ideas, please share them. Reach out. We would love to hear them. The physical footprint is what it is, but we're always open to new ideas if you have something you'd like to see being offered that currently is not. All right, thank you very much. With that, I will turn it over to Alix, and she's got some fantastic news about this year's scholarship winners.
Merci, Karen. Bonsoir. Je m'appelle Alix. I'm the education director here at the Alliance. And every year I present our high school scholarships. And our program began in 2003. And the scholarships cover membership fees, tuition, and materials for each student. For a calendar year, that's a total of about $2,000 per participant. And acceptance to the program is determined by academic merit, financial need, access or lack of access to French programs in school, maturity and interest in French culture and the French language. I admit I was a little bit nervous this year that we wouldn't have many candidates, because I knew that high school students were really in a difficult position, and requiring them to write a letter, get a transcript, get recommendation letters from teachers was pretty tricky this spring. So I was pleasantly surprised to have a really good group of candidates, and so many that we were unfortunately unable to give a scholarship to all of them, but we've encouraged them to continue coming to events, including our teen club, and for those who can apply next year to apply. So the 6 recipients that we have this year, we have 5 full year recipients and 1 summer scholarship. We have Lily Anderson, who's just finished 11th grade at South High School in Minneapolis Public Schools. Soleil Carlson, who just finished 10th grade at St. Paul Como Park. Catherine Larson, who just finished 9th grade at Math and Science Academy in Woodbury. Donna Rizzo Lozana, who just finished 10th grade at Thomas Edison High School in Minneapolis. Claire Schoonmaker, who just finished 11th grade at North St. Paul High School. And Arabella Vella, who just finished 10th grade at Avalon School. Usually I would be presenting certificates, shaking hands, welcoming parents. I know a lot of the recipients and their families are watching, and I really want to recognize all of these great students who already shown a lot of enthusiasm for classes and programs, and to welcome them for the rest of the year. And you'll probably see them in classes, so welcome them with us. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Alix. And we're going to wrap things up now by announcing the results of our elections. And I would like to thank Jonathan Vesey, our a member of the board, and also our legal counsel for his verification and for his work in certifying the results of this election. First, let me note that we did have a quorum present, so that we are eligible to go ahead and take action. And as you know, there were 2 matters that were put before the members. The first, the election of directors. Karen?
So we had a fantastic slate of 5 candidates for our Class 2 directors. Each person will serve a term of 3 years. So their term will expire at the annual meeting in 2023, June of 2023. So I'm happy to announce that this year's slate of Class 2 directors has been approved, and I'd like to offer my félicitations to Philip Barnes, L. Pierce McCarty III, and Caroline Sell, our newly elected board members. And I will greatly miss not having an opportunity to serve with you all, but I'm sure I will meet you. And I'd also like to congratulate Michelle Champlin-Bergner and Chi-Chi Steiner, both of whom have been elected to a second 3-year term to our board. Congratulations.
The second item of business put before the members was adoption and approval of a new revised set of bylaws that modernizes our bylaws and brings them more into line with how we actually operate than the very sort of out-of-date bylaws that we had before. And I am delighted to say that the new bylaws have been approved by the membership and effective immediately will replace the old bylaws. If you haven't had a chance to read them verbatim, they are available on the website, or just email anyone on the board and they can provide you a set of the bylaws if you would like to. This concludes the formal business of our meeting. I would like to thank Allison Lindberg, a member of our board, who is the Zoom guru who is seeing us through this particular adventure. I'd also like to thank, as always, Dominic Zentner, our wonderful technician on this end, who is handling audio and video. I would once more like to thank Karen. No board chair of any organization has had a vice chair any better than Karen Zentner Bacig, and it is with a tear in my eye that I see her roll off the board, but I'm hopeful for the future. And with that, I hereby adjourn the meeting, and we'll see you again next year. Thank you all very much. A bientôt.